already, isn't it? The last few we went through pretty quickly. Tonight's actually not going to be any different. There's a lot of information, but it's going to flow quickly. And this this chapter is basically going to give us the idea that there's no more delay. Things are going to get ramped up. Things are starting to really take place quickly. And we're going to see that tonight. If you remember the last chapter, in chapter 9, we were talking about the sixth trumpet and the angels that came in that sixth trumpet, and all the things that were going on with the six trumpets. And now we see this in the midst of. This is chapter 10. It's almost like there's a pause, and here we put this inserted again. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. This is about a mighty angel. This is talking about, we're going to talk about that a little bit, but let's look at verse 1. I saw still another mighty angel coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloud. Can you get a picture of that somehow, that someone's clothed with a cloud? Can you ever imagine wearing a cloud of some kind? I don't know how that would even look or how it would be supposed to look. But it gives that description here. And a rainbow was on his head. It's another picture. His face was like the sun, and his feet like pillars of fire. So, this is where John writes he still saw another one. If you remember Revelation chapter 9, left off of the sounding, as I said already, the sixth of the seven trumpets, and which ushered in, as we saw there, the end of all things. That was really what the sixth trumpet and all those leading up to the sixth trumpet were dealing with. Now, instead of the seventh trumpet being sounded, we have another interlude. And if you remember, there was also one other interlude with, after the sixth, what? Remember? After the sixth seal, we had interlude. Remember? Same way now. After the sixth trumpet, we have this interlude. It's just thrown in the middle of it. But you see another angel. And we're going to have this up until about halfway through chapter 11 of Revelation. It's going to be this sort of in between. This, I believe, serves as a dramatic purpose in some way. It also shows, I think also, in a sense, it shows God's mercy in allowing, I think, more opportunity for repentance. And if you remember, this is during what period now? We're believing this is part of what is happening. Great tribulation. Okay? So we have to understand, as we're looking at this, we've already looked at it from chapter 6, that this is part of the great tribulation that's happening. So in the midst of this, we're finding this happening. So again, it's almost like God is allowing. If you remember, we talked about it, the great multitudes that came out of the great tribulation were saints that were standing before the throne. So we have this again, and I think it's just God allowing for this opportunity again. If God brought us these things to the brink, and then almost like He pulls back for a little, okay? And therefore gives mankind again opportunity, those who are in the tribulation period. He says another mighty angel came down from heaven. Many have identified this mighty angel, this messenger, even some have tried to allude to this being Jesus. But there has to be some imagery that comes out of that to get to that point. But we can, in some sense, if you remember Revelation 1, we talked about Jesus had his countenance was like sun shining in his strength. So there is some similarities there with descriptions. But angels are never clearly identified with Jesus in the book of Revelation. And we don't see that given to him any other time except in the Old Testament where it says the angel of the Lord. But other than that, we don't see that imagery with Jesus and angels. The better identification probably here is with someone like Michael, who also has been given descriptions of being a mighty angel. So we find that this also can identify him in some similarity from Daniel chapter 12 and also later on in chapter 12. So whatever the exact identity, we really don't know, but one thing's for sure. Clearly this angel comes from the presence of God. That's what's clear here. And he also has great authority and might. And it tells us the rainbow, I think it's probably a reminder of God's promise to humanity, but also is a natural result. This happens when the sun is shining through a cloud, so to speak. Because remember, he's dressed in a cloud. So this could be part of this, what's being seen. But regardless of what it is, it's clearly a picture that would not be common to John. And it definitely isn't common to us in any way. Have you ever seen anything like this so far? Have you ever seen any imagery, especially a human being kind of thing? Of course, it's not a human being, it's an angel. I'm just saying that the appearance of. Let's look at verse 2. The same angel cries out and utters some voices which are called thunders. Verse 2 says he had a little book open in his hand. And he set his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land. And he cried with a loud voice as when a lion roars. When he cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. Again, I mean, I can't imagine John experiencing this kind of thing, but he clearly is. And this little book, it says in his hand, some have suggested that maybe this little book is the same as the scroll. If you remember in chapter 5, that Jesus was the only one that was allowed to open this scroll. But it also takes one who's a mighty angel, and therefore you could say in some way. But I don't want to have our minds think that, because there's too many things that don't correlate with that at all. For one, John's words that describe a scroll is totally different than the word used to describe a book. So that's number one. And number two, this is clearly a different time, a different event. So obviously, we have to deduct that this little book is clearly a separate thing. They closely are related, of course. They can be. Perhaps this little book is a short version of the entirety of what's happening, and this portion that John himself will see and write about. So obviously there's an importance here, but we also know that none of the contents of this little book are revealed in Revelation. They seem to represent a vision of something written with authority and given to the angel to fulfill whatever mission, but we don't really know the contents. It probably is some design of God that has been concealed for so long, but now he's made it manifest, and John is able to see. But who knows what it means? We don't have a description of it. Clearly, he says his right foot, it says on the sea, his left foot is on the land. So this then is a clear vision of this angel who has authority. And this authority is over both land and sea. So his authority is either direct, which means the mighty angel is Jesus, or indirect, and he's in kind of an angelic being as a messenger from God. So clearly we have this picture that John is trying to describe, and the thing we have to remember, it describes his authority over the whole earth. That's the main thing. He had his feet on both land and sea to show that his command was of each, and that his power was universal. and all things were clearly under his feet. So whoever this is, whatever being, whatever angelic situation, we have to understand that. When he cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. This relates to the same idea of thunderous voice of God as described in Psalm 29. Now, I'm actually going to ask if you would flip over there and look at this, because there's 7 times that there is a repeated phrase that talks about the voice of the Lord. And we see this in different places as well. When it's described the authority of God's voice as thunderings. So, Psalm 29. Yep, Psalm 29. We're going to read verse 3 through 9 here. It has some very descriptive. In the first it says, the voice of the Lord is over the waters. The God of glory thunders. The Lord is over many waters. The voice of the Lord is powerful. The voice of the Lord is full of majesty. The voice of the Lord breaks the cedars. Yes, the Lord splinters the cedars of Lebanon. He makes them also skip like a calf, Lebanon and Syrian, like a young wild ox. The voice of the Lord divides the flames of fire. The voice of the Lord shakes the wilderness. The Lord shakes the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of the Lord makes the deer give birth and strips the forest bare. And in his temple everyone says, glory. So again, this is relative to what we're talking about here in Revelation. Meaning, the voice of the Lord has always been given in some descriptive that the awesome authority and power carries with it thunder. Thunder. It even says lightning in Revelation 2. We'll see that later on. So, what does that describe if you hear a voice that sounds like thunder? What do you think what's the first idea that would come to mind if you heard a voice that thunders? Power, might, authority. It clearly is describing that, okay? So, and notice in chapter 10 here, verse 4 now, John is commanded to write what the thunders say. And again, I want to use that descriptive so that we do know this is what's happening here. This is clearly showing the authority that the Creator has, but also this angel has been given. So, the authority that comes. Now, verse 4, now when the 7 thunders uttered their voices, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, seal up the things which the 7 thunders uttered, and do not write them. Interesting, isn't it? He's about to write, but he's told, do not write them. This irritates a lot of commentators and Bible scholars, because the question is, well, what did he write? What did he put out there? Why don't we know this? See?
I'm not supposed to know.
Well, apparently not. Why did they say that John must not tell us?
Why did he have him write it, I wonder?
He said right about what this book was, but he didn't give him the contents. So it tells us we're supposed to know something's there, but we don't know what it is. Huh? Well, sure. Sure. Makes you want to know what the book is, huh? Okay, but John is clearly not permitted to tell us what it says. And he you know, and like you said already, why would he even record this incident? Why would it be? Of course, one result is to let us know that there are secrets in prophetic scenarios and mysteries. You know, the Bible's full of saying that. There's mysteries about the gospel. There's mysteries about the kingdom. There's mysteries that we don't know everything. Paul wrote that often about that as well. It keeps ourselves in a position that we remain humble as well, because if we don't know, we're not as eager to be proud, are we? But when we know, we can soon get overwhelmed with being pride, having pride. But this is clearly illustrates this principle to us that God has revealed much, but also there are secrets which God has not seen fit to reveal. And I can say in my own life, there's many things that I haven't been able to reveal either, because most would not even understand what I would say. So I can clearly understand why the Bible and God Himself doesn't reveal everything, doesn't show us everything. Because as humans, it's hard for us to handle if we would know the things that are mysteries. It would be hard to handle those things if we knew more of what is there. Verse 5 through 7 clearly is telling us that this is going to be ramping up. There's no more delaying here. The angel who I saw standing on the sea and the land raised up his hand to heaven and swore by Him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are in it, the earth and the things that are in it, the sea and the things that are in it. And there should be delay no longer, but in the days of the sounding of the seventh angel, when he is about to sound. Did you notice the seventh angel here? Okay. When he is about to sound, the mystery of God would be finished, as He declared to all His servants, the prophets. So again, this angel, this mighty angel that we have a picture of, that John has wrote for us, gives this solemn oath, declaring that the end is going to be irrevocably set in motion. There's no turning back. This clearly is now the situation that's going to be presented before mankind, and there will be no delay any longer. There was absolutely, at this point, no turning back. So, again, this is partly why I say it almost seems like this interlude is God's way of showing a little mercy again for those in the tribulation. And therefore they should again pay attention to Him who is our Creator. And therefore we can look at this and again get a grasp of who God is. He's the God of mercy. Okay? He's the God of love. He's the one who wants us to have that. He's not putting these people in a position again that they have no hope. This is unreal. As we look at the tribulation and how it's being presented in God's Word, and how scholars present it, how it's presented from the pulpit, and all these things. But we still have to remember it's God's mercy for all of us that we have to factor in, because without His mercy, there is no salvation. There is none. So again, during this tribulation, even the very ones who have denied Him, the very ones who have decided they didn't want to believe, I believe are given another chance, as we see here. So again, no more delay at this point. The mystery of God, as it says, would be finished. And that's what we don't know. What mystery? What is it? One important aspect of this mystery is that He said it, He declared it to all His servants, the prophets. What does that mean? You know, in biblical vocabulary, we look at a mystery. And a mystery, of course, is something no one knows. And mystery is something no one could know unless it's revealed. You see? A mystery is something that is not known or being able to know unless it's actually revealed. So therefore, this is why I say, sometimes we as humans, there's a lot of things God doesn't reveal to us. But then there are times God reveals things. So, if there's a mystery, it is only a mystery because we don't know. And I'm amazed at how many people who walk on the earth and say and talk Christianity, but yet there's mysteries that they have no idea of what's going on. You can soon see it by the vocabulary, by what they say, what they do. There's mysteries that God reveals, and obviously some just have no clue. It's obvious. Okay? So we have to know that God himself is the one who's going to reveal a mystery. It's not something that can be done in a personal investigation even. It has to come from a relationship with God. And when you have a relationship with God, He reveals things. It becomes known within your own heart what the mystery is. Okay? These mysteries need to be revealed. And therefore something can be known also and still be a mystery in the biblical sense. Because if God doesn't reveal it, it's still a mystery. And that's what's going on with this little book. It's a mystery. Okay? But the mystery of God, it's hard to say what precise thing is this mystery that John is throwing at us here. The phrase is used in many different aspects of God's plan. I left these on here for you. There's 4 of them here. And the ultimate conversion of the Jewish people is called a mystery itself. That comes out of Romans chapter 11. God's purpose for the church. If you remember, Paul wrote this, again, as I said earlier. God's purpose for the church is called a mystery. There again, it has to be revealed, doesn't it? We also find the bringing in of the fullness of the Gentiles into this church, into the salvation, into allowing the opportunity of that is also a mystery. That's Romans 11 as well. The living presence of Jesus in the believer is called a mystery of God. That's in Colossians. So there's so many things that we can relate to with God's mystery. And therefore we should understand that just because we might attend church or we might read or we might feel like we have all complete understanding, there are mysteries that are not revealed. Okay? But there are mysteries that God does reveal, and what do we do with them mysteries? See? And we find that the gospel itself is called the mystery of Christ. Colossians. Why would he call these things? Why would the church in its purpose be called a mystery? Why would salvation, why would the gospel be called a mystery? Why would it be such? Why is that language put there?
Makes it exciting.
Huh?
Makes it exciting.
Makes it exciting, okay.